Oh, we're live. We haven't done this in a while. How you doing, Aaron Smith-Levin?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Andrew Gold?
All the better for seeing your face, looking handsome as ever. Good to be doing this. Yeah, we haven't in a while because we haven't necessarily had a topical occasion to do a live stream about. We've got this really interesting bit about, well, Danny Masterson, as many of you know, of course, was in the news a lot a few months ago with this trial. I'm going to be careful around words we use just because of how YouTube is. Many of you know that the Scientologist, Danny Masterson, what he did to women, or what he allegedly did to women. The trial was, it was a mistrial, but it's now being scheduled again. I'll ask Aaron for specifics about it, of course, because he knows all the stuff. We're trying out something today where this is being live streamed to both of our channels as separate videos. So what we would massively appreciate is if you could maybe watch both of them, put one of them on mute, just to trick YouTube into giving us both some love. Click like on both of those as well. Aaron, what's going on with the Danny Masterson trial?
Well, some pretty cool developments, from the perspective of someone who wants to see Danny Masterson found guilty. So first of all, jury selection in the trial begins April 17th. It was going to begin April 11th. And interestingly enough, the judge bumping up the jury selection date by just 6 days almost completely wipes out the possibility that Scientology would be able to infiltrate the jury. Now, most people probably have no idea how you can infiltrate a jury, but some of my friends in Los Angeles who are very familiar with the case, who have experience with Scientology, ran an experiment to see if they could specifically get themselves called for jury duty on the earlier start date, April 11th. And they were able to get themselves called for jury duty. Now, I know there's a difference between being called for jury duty and being selected for a jury, but I'm just saying by bumping up the jury selection date, pushing it out by 6 days, it wipes out the possibility that any Scientology agents who had managed to get themselves called for jury duty on that day would be wiped out of the jury pool. So, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
One of the other things is that a brand new victim, another person who was brutally attacked by Danny Masterson back in 2000 up in Canada, is being called to testify as a witness in this case. This person has spoken to the press before, but she was not involved in the first case.
Okay.
So these are not new charges. Danny's not being charged with this woman's attack, but she is being called to testify, and the judge has said that she can testify. And it's another case where it involves Danny Masterson giving a woman a drink. The woman has some of the drink and all of a sudden is incapacitated and is attacked. And the story, I actually told the story in a video on this channel a few months ago. It's horrible. I won't even try to do it right now, but it's horrible. And so she's testifying. That's horrible news for Danny Masterson. Jane Doe 4 is someone who was allowed to testify in the last case. The defense was trying to get her kicked out of this case. She's being allowed to testify again. Claire Headley, who anyone watching my channel knows who Claire Headley is. Claire Bear.
Of course.
Many of your viewers probably know who Claire Headley is as well. She's being allowed to testify as an expert witness in Scientology. She was not permitted to testify in the last case. The judge has allowed her in this case. That's huge.
Wow. Do you know why?
It has to do with the way the defense tried to attack some of the evidence in the case last time. So, and this might sound like a slight going off on a tangent, but give me a sec here. In the first case, the defense had said, we weren't going to deny these events ever occurred. We were just going to argue that they were consensual. They deviated from that strategy. They did, in fact, try to say that certain events never occurred. Something about the way the defense deviated from their strategy contributed to the judge changing her mind a little bit about how much a testimony she was going to allow on the subject of Scientology to the degree that it impacted certain pieces of evidence that were impacted by Scientology. So like Jane Doe 1, for example, wrote a report, a Scientology report, a report that was intended for internal Scientology consumption, wrote a report about the attack, but there were certain details about the attack that she was specifically told to omit from the report. Well, the defense is going to sit there and go, she omitted these details because they were never details. She's now making them up. Well, it would take a Scientology expert to testify to explain why those details were omitted from the report. It's not just the word of the defense against the word of Jane Doe 1. Scientology has something to do with why certain details were omitted from that report. For example, a firearm was omitted from that report. For example, the R word was omitted from that report. Well, that's because the ethics officer said you're not allowed to put those words in the report. Okay. And so I'm going to be very interested I'm sure the defense is going to be objecting to almost every answer Claire tries to give. But I think
do you think, Aaron, we should I'm just wondering, I suppose 90% of people will be familiar with the case, but there might be a few sort of straddlers and new people going, hang on, who's this? Is this bloke from the 70s show? The one with the curly hair? What's the deal with this? Because he was, I guess I should say, he was in Scientology, part of one of the celebrities in Scientology, and his family were all part of it as well. What happened?
Yeah, so Danny Masterson is an actor, most famous from that 70s show. His entire family are Scientologists. His brothers, sisters, Jordan Masterson, Chris Masterson, Alana Masterson, Danny Masterson, the 4 siblings, all successful actors in Hollywood. His mother and father are also both professionals in the industry. I always forget. One of them's an agent, the other one's something else, but all successful. And so Danny, I'm struggling to remember which attack was the earliest attack. I'm aware of one that occurred as early as 1995, 1996. And we've never heard from that woman at all because she's still a Scientologist. Danny has been accused by, it's got to be maybe 7 women now, of giving them substances and then attacking them in an adult manner, an adult nature, attacks of an adult nature. And in the beginning, it was Scientologists only. And now we're hearing of other attacks of non-Scientologists, even out of the country. So, wow. And for those not familiar with the first case, there is zero question from a Scientology knows Danny did this. There are internal Scientology procedures in place to deal with things like this. You're also in Scientology not allowed to ever report another Scientologist to the authorities for any reason whatsoever, including attacks of this nature against children. So the Scientology procedures that exist to deal with things like this did occur. The Scientologists involved in dealing with Danny know that he did these things. The evidence that Danny did these things exists in writing within the world of Scientology. And I believe, so Jane Doe 1, her own mother at the time was writing reports to senior Scientology managers complaining about how this thing was being handled. Those reports were not admitted as evidence in the first case. With the testimony of Claire Headley as an expert witness, I think there is a chance we actually might see those reports admitted as evidence.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That would be big.
What's another interesting thing here is that Jane Doe 1, she's out of Scientology now. And when Jane Doe 1 was in Scientology, Jane Doe 1's mother was an advocate on her behalf trying to get justice within the world of Scientology. Jane Doe 1's mother is still a Scientologist. And it's actually one of the reasons she ended up not being called as a witness in the first trial, is because she was expected to testify to support Jane Doe 1's testimony. And yet prior to being called to the stand, she was heard in the hallway outside the courtroom saying things to people that actually would have like Jane Doe 1's mother was going to torpedo the case. She had already, done her little, what do they call it when you basically prepping for your testimony? The prosecution thought they knew what Jane Doe 1's mother was going to say on the stand. And she was heard contradicting her own testimony to people outside of the courtroom. And they're like, oh, she's being sent here to torpedo the case. She's being sent in by Scientology to torpedo the case. And so she didn't testify. That's why it's actually very important. It would be very important to the case to get the reports that Jane Doe 1's mother wrote when both of them were still in Scientology, and have those reports be admitted as evidence instead of having her mother get up there and possibly try to torpedo the whole case, to do Scientology's bidding for them. So pretty wild stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea about that. Isn't that absolutely crazy? So this is the weird thing. And I remember you telling me last time that I think we want to believe almost like, okay, Scientology equals evil. And so they would be celebrating what Danny Masterson did. But I gather from what you told me last time is that that wouldn't be the case, that he would actually be, in trouble, so to speak.
Oh, when you say celebrating what they did, no, Scientology does not look kindly upon these types of crimes. It's just that no matter how disgusting the crime is, they're never going to report a Scientologist to the authorities. And Scientologists in their own way do believe that Scientology auditing is the only way to fix whatever's wrong with people that causes them to commit these types of crimes. I mean, it doesn't. they don't. But these two things sort of work in concert with each other, that they believe Scientology is the only thing that can fix people. And they also don't want Scientology's dirty laundry getting into the press or getting into the courts. So, these two things work in concert with each other to ultimately protect predators from accountability in any normal societal sense of the word. No, Scientology Scientology is definitely not happy with Danny Masterson. I'll tell you that much. I mean, I'm sure Miscavige would rather this guy just walked in front of a bus.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And how does, Tom Cruise and all that? I mean, it's just making them all look bad, and it's dragging them through the press. And it's an interesting thing. And we talked about Katie Lohman, who I interviewed on my channel. And a lot of people said, why don't they always sort of show that sort of side? They never do interviews. David Miscavige is like one interview he did like 30 years ago. I guess it didn't go too well. Tom Cruise won't talk about it now. So firstly, I guess I'm thinking it's a bit weird that they don't. You would think they would want to come forward and at least sort of attract more members that way. But the fact that they don't, and then the only thing they're getting now is this Danny Masterson. That's the only thing they're in the news about, or Lisa Marie Presley, or whatever it might be. It's not a good look for them, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, it's a really tough position to be in, like being someone who's responsible for being Scientology's spokesperson or being responsible for Scientology's PR. I mean, what a horrible position to be in. It's like trying to defend the indefensible. I mean, especially when, as a PR or as a spokesperson, you're kind of about transparency, accountability, and yet Scientology, just as a matter of its own DNA, is incapable of being transparent and honest. I mean, not just about crimes, but about its own belief system. The upper confidential levels of Scientology are completely unknown to most Scientologists. And yet those upper confidential levels is what people in popular culture most commonly know about Scientology. Xenu and the body thetans and, all that kind of stuff. That's the confidential levels of Scientology. So how are you supposed to be a Scientology spokesperson, go in front of a journalist or an interviewer who's done their homework, and you have to answer questions about stuff Scientologists aren't even allowed to talk about? I mean, it's a pretty unenviable position to be in, right? Or you get pneumonia and die.
Bloody hell. So they're in this difficult position right now. It doesn't look good for them, but they're not going to come forward. They didn't at the last trial. Someone like Tom Cruise, or, I mean, who are they sending forward to speak at these trials?
That was the thing. There was only one person who was even scheduled to testify on Danny Masterson's behalf. And I think, was it Bree Schaefer, his assistant? I don't think the defense called a single witness other than like a detective. What the defense has done is they've brought some detectives up there. There's been some detective misconduct in this case. There have been different detectives. There have been detectives taken off the case, new detectives assigned, and detectives taken off for cause, for good reasons. And yet, so one or more of these detectives have testified to some inconsistencies in the stories over time. Of course, there would be inconsistencies with memory being imperfect and trauma being included. It would be suspicious if the story was exactly the same every single time with no deviation or extra details included or omitted. So anyway, Scientology did not send anyone up there to actually testify on Danny's behalf. There was, however, one Scientologist named Shaun Fabos, who used to be one of Jane Doe 1's best friends, and who has been recorded on secret police recordings, admitting and agreeing to everything everything Jane Doe has testified to. And yet they called him to the stand, and all of a sudden he changed his testimony. All of a sudden he started making up stories that weren't even true. All of a sudden he was saying things like, oh, right after the attack, I went on the family vacation with Jen. Oh, I went on a family vacation with Jane Doe 1, and she was in a bikini and there was no bruising on her at all. Shaun was never on that vacation. Like, he started just making stuff up. And but there was no high profile Scientologists. I mean, it's not like they're going to just bring up a character defense. It's not like Tom Cruise is going to take the stand and be like, I know Danny, he's a great guy, so he couldn't have done any of these things. I mean, that's not how these trials work. But
wouldn't it be great?
It would be pretty great.
Yeah. Just entertainment wise, I mean, of course, it is a very serious trial, so I will try and remember that. But for Tom Cruise to just turn up and sort of say, but that's not going to happen. Where do you see this one going? This new trial?
Well, I mean, I got to be careful because I was wrong the last time. Yeah. But
and we've got to be careful because last time Leah Remini got in trouble, didn't she, for tweeting about it, and because we're influencing a jury.
I mean, she didn't get in trouble. The defense tried to get the case thrown out every time Leah Remini would tweet about it, basically. But the judge just laughed it off. So when I say be careful, 12 jurors voting on anything unanimously is a high hurdle to clear. And, I think we should say it's good that it's a high hurdle to clear. It should be hard to convict somebody of something they did 20 years ago. It should be hard. That being said, I think the complexion of this case of the prosecution here is much different and much better than what we had the first time. I think the introduction of Claire testifying, I think the possibility of being able to see Jane Doe 1's mother's reports. There is another expert witness being allowed to testify that didn't testify last time, and that is I think this one, Dr. Ziv, she was the expert witness in the Harvey Weinstein case about how victims of trauma behave, trauma of this specific nature. Because, for example, Jane Doe 3, some people who don't understand how victims of trauma behave will say, well, if this really occurred, how come she continued to be in a relationship with him after the attack? Okay, well, that's where Dr. Ziv comes into play. There is another person, expert witness, testifying for the first time. It's an LAPD criminologist who's an expert in toxicology. In the first trial, the women were not allowed to say that they believed they were drugged. They were not allowed to use the word drugged. And I don't know if that specific ruling in this case has changed. I do know that in the first case, there was no expert witness about toxicology. So, the lawyers had to do this little dance. Like, did you have a drink? Yes, I did. How did you feel after the drink? Oh, I felt like this. Had that ever happened to you before? No, it didn't. But they were never allowed to say, do you think you were drugged? Or they never said, I felt drugged. I think I was drugged. The introduction of an expert witness about toxicology does seem to indicate the point is going to be driven home to the jurors a little more strongly that Danny drugs women and attacks them. He's been doing it for decades. He's done it in multiple countries. He's done it to Scientologists and non-Scientologists. So when I say I need to be careful, I think Danny's chances of being convicted here are much greater than they were the first time. Remember, the first time they also had a guy lie his way onto the jury and taint the jury pool.
Yeah. So was that a Scientologist then?
He wasn't a Scientologist, but there are some very strange connections between Earl Batiste and his daughter Nina and some former Scientologists, and how, this guy Earl just happened to lie his way onto the jury, just happened to be working with the defense team to get the charges thrown out after the trial, just happened to be platformed by a former Scientologist so we could all hear how they just really didn't believe the Jane Does. It seemed like the defense's strategy was being executed by people unknowingly and unwittingly. And that's pretty much how Scientology would behave. Whether that's really what happened or not, we can't say for sure. But the prosecution asked for more time during the jury selection process, what they call the voir dire. is how they said it in My Cousin Vinny. They said, look, the first time around, we basically had an average of 40 seconds per juror to question them about their jury questionnaires. And we would like more time to make sure that the jury doesn't get infiltrated this time like it did last time. And the judge has granted that request as well. So I do think it looks like Danny's in some trouble here, I think. And I do think he will be found guilty, but that's the easy thing to say. And I think we just need to see how it goes.
I like this voir dire thing, a preliminary examination, preliminary examination of a witness or the jury pooled by a judge or counsel. And yeah, I remember My Cousin Vinny. That was great. And it means to say voir dire, as everyone will remember from their French lessons if they did them. So
I didn't take French lessons, Andrew. I grew up in a cult, but
yeah, I sort of stopped myself saying it as I was. I started to say, as you'll remember from your normal non-Scientology educational lessons as a child. Oh wait, and I sort of stumbled and tried to say everybody will have done French. Plus, many Americans probably learned Spanish when it would be ver decir, I suppose.
That's true.
So, you go on.
Is learning French a really common thing in English schools?
It's the first one we'd learn. Would be typically French, just because it's the nearest country, I suppose. Whereas you guys, I think it tends to be Spanish.
It tends to be Spanish, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so there you go.
You're fluent in Spanish, aren't you?
I'm fluent in Spanish and French.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and German.
I speak conversational Spanish.
Do you?
Yes.
That's a risky thing to say because I will test you later.
No. Not like we're just hanging out on the corner shooting the shit Spanish. More like I can get around in a Spanish country.
Yeah. I would like to buy some clothes from the shop, that kind of thing. Hey, did you hear about what Ashton Kutcher had to say recently about his friend Danny Masterson?
How recently?
I think this is new. Oh no, it's not that new. It's from a couple of months ago.
I remember doing a video about something he said, which is like, I want him to be innocent.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very critical of what Ashton said. It's like Ashton knows an awful lot about what Danny Masterson has done.
Do you think?
And has been involved in I'm not going to say that Ashton has been involved in non-consensual situations, but I'm saying Ashton knows exactly what Danny has done. And yeah, Ashton playing dumb about this is like, Ashton, you're better off just not saying anything at all. Like,
my God, it was it's a really weird thing to say about someone who's under these kinds of allegations. And as you say, he presumably knows about them. And he said, yeah, someday his kid is going to read about this.
Like Ashton knows the Jane Does. It's not like he only knows his friend Danny and boy, he knows the Jane Does. He knows them personally. Ashton's entire circle was composed of Scientologists. It's really amazing that Ashton himself never actually got into Scientology. No, he knows the Jane Does just as much as he knows Danny. So I'm going to be like, oh, gee, I sure hope my friend's innocent. Well, are you saying your other friends are lying? Like, he'd be so much better off just saying nothing.
Well, he mitigated what he said with a weird sentence, because he said he also wholesale feels for anybody who feels like they were violated in any way. I find that wholesale really weird. I know people use it as a sort of expression, but wholesale is, the business of selling goods in large quantities. It's just he sort of commercially in large quantities feels for anybody who feels like they were violated. So again, it's really downplaying what happened to these women and just using a weird commercial metaphor.
Yeah, I think there's a different definition for that word, which just means like without exception.
Yeah, it's still weird though. I find it weird. And he goes, ultimately, I can't know. I'm not the judge. I'm not the jury. I'm not the DA. I'm not the victim. And I'm not the accused. And so in that case, I don't have a space to comment. I just don't know, except to say, I hope he's found innocent. So he did comment. He's saying he didn't comment.
Yeah, he could have said, what do I know? I grew up in a cult. I'm pretty sure. I think Ashton was in a cult. I think Ashton grew up in a cult, just not Scientology.
Ashton Kutcher grew up in cults.
I might be getting him mixed up with another celebrity. Am I getting him mixed up with Joaquin Phoenix? I'm getting him mixed up with Joaquin
Children
Phoenix.
Children of God. He was the Children of God cult, Joaquin Phoenix. But Ashton grew up in a conservative Roman Catholic family.
There you go. No, I'm just kidding. Um, yeah. What do I know? I'm not the judge or the jury. It's like, then just shut up. Then just shut up.
Yeah.
To say that you hope he's found innocent is like saying you hope the other women are lying. I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but you know what? I'd probably find fault with anything he said on it. You know, even if he said nothing, I'd probably find fault with it, but at least he would have said nothing.
He said a weird thing for a guy who must have loads of Hollywood PR people around him. He said a pretty weird thing that he probably shouldn't have said. So, okay, so let's say Danny is found guilty. I mean, is it the same as what we were talking about a few months ago? Are we talking about life in prison?
I think it's 45 years to life. I think if he's found guilty of 2 of the 3 counts, God, do I have it wrong? It's either up to 45 years or 45 years to life. I don't want to Google it right now. I feel like it's a minimum of 45 years. I mean, the guy's 45 years would pretty much be life. Even if you serve, what is Danny? Danny's got to be late 40s, right? How old is Danny Masterson? Do you know?
I'm going to say 46.
How old is Danny Masterson?
It's quite a remarkable.
Yeah, he's 47.
47. It's a remarkable. I don't know. I don't know a better system. There isn't one that I know of. But this idea that just on a technicality, right now he's off and he's free forever. But now, oh no, we're going to retrial, and now he might go to prison forever. And there's no sort of in between. And if he were not a psychopath, I think, he wouldn't be able to live each day right now. Like that kind of uncertainty. Your life can go in 2 incredibly different directions. But by all accounts, he is a little bit of a psychopath and just very arrogant and probably thinks he'll just get off again.
Yeah. I mean, his attitude in the courtroom the first time around was just horrible. I mean, his friends were there. They were intimidating the witnesses. They were spying on the witnesses in the bathroom. I mean, honestly, you haven't heard some of these stories. Like some of Danny's crew, the girls would go into the bathroom and hide up in the bathroom stalls and wait in there to hear what the victims were talking about with their attorneys in the bathroom and shit. They would come in with a whole crew of people and just like stare down the witnesses and any other Scientologists, former Scientologists who showed up to support them. And actually, it's one of the things. There was a hearing on Monday about these violations of what they call Marsy's Law. Marsy's Law is a series of laws put in place to protect victims as they're going through the legal process like this. And it turns out that the judge, no one had really ever brought it to the judge's attention before that these things were happening outside the courtroom during the trial. And so it sounds like there's going to be more safeguards put into place. But like if you're in Danny's shoes, I mean, like you're pointing out, your life could go 2 drastically different directions, just hinging on one decision.
Yeah.
And you still have the audacity to show up with your crew and continue to harass and victimize these women. Like no humility whatsoever. No, just showing up and being on your best behavior. I don't know. I think it speaks to his state of mind and the state of mind of those around him.
Yeah. And do you think that is something in growing up in Scientology? I don't mean you, but I mean him. Is there this sort of, is that partly why he has that attitude?
I think it contributes to it. You're with us or you're against us. I mean, that's very expressly stated by Hubbard many times as far as Scientology is concerned. You're either with us or against us. And I think the way that they would be looking at it at this point is it's not just getting justice. Like that's not how Scientologists think about it. Scientologists don't actually think that the justice system exists to bring about justice. They think only Scientology can bring about justice. So they would see what the Jane Does are doing as not an attempt to get justice, but an attempt to destroy Scientology and the reputations of leading Scientologists. That's how they would be looking at it. It wouldn't be something horrible was done to you and you're trying to get justice. It would be you're trying to destroy Scientology. So
do you want to open up to a few questions from people?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe that could be nice. We'll just talk for a little more. People do try and keep them Danny Masterson centric, but I guess we can answer anything. And like I said at the beginning, because you might just be joining us now, we've experimented in streaming this to both of our pages, so Growing Up in Scientology and On the Edge with Andrew Gold. So go and check out both, and maybe let's just play. If you want to help us play them all, play one of them on mute and hit the like and comment on both or whatever. You guys are so helpful with these things anyway. So we very much appreciate it. So here's a question from, I've tried to click it. There we are. From Devon Lara. Is the new Jane Doe the one you talked about who went to that rap party with her stepdaughter or someone else? There's so many at this point.
Yep, that's the one. That is the one.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe this was in Vancouver. She's already done interviews in the press. So I won't say her name only because I'm not sure that the court is going to use her name. But if you do search my channel for, and it's something like another Danny Masterson victim comes forward, and the video is about 2 or 3 months old. I do talk about the details, and yeah, she's not the only one who was attacked. Her stepdaughter was also attacked. It's just not clear whether the attacks occurred in separate rooms, and it's just not clear whether Danny was involved in both attacks. I have to assume the DA's already looked into that, and that's why the stepdaughter is not coming to testify, or maybe the stepdaughter didn't want to testify. So. Are you there?
My video's cut.
Your video's cut?
Oh, my video cut for a second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Loud and clear. Loud and clear. Oh, I mean, right now I actually can't hear you. You're frozen. See, Miscavige has gummed it up again. Uh-oh. You're frozen, Andrew. Well, I don't know what we're going to do about this one. Andrew, maybe back out of the stream and come back in. That's what I recommend. Okay, I have taken over Andrew Gold's live stream, everybody. Well, hopefully he comes right back. And the thing is that I'm not sure that I can actually see. Well, actually, I do see some comments. So let me see if I can do this until he comes back. Okay, so we have bosom buddy bullies. Bosom buddy bullies Burgesses. Oh, that's a tongue twister. Why weren't they allowed to say if they were drugged? Is it because it can't be proven? I just genuinely don't know the answer to this question. I don't know. Because you would think that if they weren't allowed to say it, that they wouldn't even be allowed to imply it. I just genuinely don't know. That's actually something I should talk to my attorney friend, Zach Morgan, about. Maybe he can help us understand that even better. Okay, so I'm going to go through all the comments. Let me see. Thank you for that one. Let me find more. This is weird because this video is actually being hosted on Andrew's channel. It's being simulcast to my channel, and somehow it's letting me do all this stuff. So, oh, I see Andrew. He's coming back. Andrew's
I'm so
back.
sorry about that. I'm so sorry, everyone. It's bloody Scientologists trying to get us. You know what? When I used to do Shaun's channel, that used to happen a lot, and Shaun Atwood, and he was really sure, and he even contacted his internet service provider, who said they have had an unusual number of attacks from like people on his server or something like that. Isn't that mad?
Wow. Well, look, I was able to answer some questions even while in your absence. I answered the one from Bosom Buddy Bullies Burgesses.
Okay. Oh yes. Why weren't they allowed to say if they were? Is it okay? That's good. I got one about me, Bionic Nicola. Yes, I am, but I won't say where. I used to say where I lived, and because of the nature of the videos we make, it's no longer. Even though it's a city, I should say a place it's not. It's just to give people Edinburgh. That's where I live, and there you go. Come and find me up in Edinburgh. Come and find me up in Edinburgh. That's where I'm going to be. Let's see. We've got more questions from people. Let's see, because I was collecting them, and then it bloody cut out, didn't it? Doesn't look like there are that many questions, really.
There's a ton of questions.
Oh, or maybe I can't see them on your, maybe it's.
Oh, maybe they're coming in on my channel.
That might be the case. Not sure.
Okay,
Let's
so
see.
this is weird. Watching Aaron on the Edge. Yeah, so it's funny because we're streaming on your channel, and yet I was the single face doing a live stream on your channel. It was really funny. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but you know what's, if anyone could take it over, if I'm ever unwell, I insist, Erin, that you step up in my place and take my interviews and things, extra work. You know, I think that's a great idea.
Let me see. I'm scrolling through. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, at least great expression to freeze on. I mean, at least it was a normal looking expression.
Oh my God. Was it normal? Was it all right?
It was pretty normal. It was pretty normal.
Okay.
So
we've got a question here from Michelle Moore. Oh, sorry, did you just put one up?
No.
Hey guys, did I miss hearing if this case is televised or not? Assuming not, what verdict do you put it? And that's a good thing, because I was actually going to ask as well, you know, because last time, basically, was the only press we got was like Tony Ortega? Was that it? What's the deal with that?
So the it's not going to be televised. There's no cameras allowed in the courtroom. And guys, one of the only reasons the last trial got as much press as it did is because it was happening at the same time as the Harvey Weinstein trial. So whenever the Weinstein trial was, they would be popping back and forth to get a little bit of a 2-for-1. But you know, the Danny Masterson courtroom was almost never filled up on any given day. It was quite empty, even though the courtroom is quite small. So because there isn't some other big case going on at the same time, we might even have less coverage. I might have to go out to LA myself and watch this thing. Are you frozen again, or are you just being very still?
I'm just being still. I'm reading.
Yeah, so there you go. You're very good at that, actually.
Oh gosh, how embarrassing. But yeah, go on. What were you saying?
Well, I mean, I do predict. I'm predicting a guilty verdict. I mean, I'm not going to predict a not guilty verdict. I think a guilty verdict is very likely, much more likely than last time. It's not going to be televised. Yeah, Masterson just isn't really a big enough celebrity for this to be a case that gets a lot of press attention. Tony Ortega wasn't the only person reporting on it. He was just the only person publishing like a real-time transcript of the thing 4 times a day. There was just as much reporting on it from other sources, but no one else was sitting there, you know, being a court reporter and just typing a transcript, which is what Tony was doing.
But it got press not just from the other press and stuff. It was I actually think it was one of the first big times that, and maybe this is just my own arrogance, that alternative press, which is us, were really reporting and getting huge numbers of people interested in this trial because we wanted people to know about what he'd done. We wanted to expose this. So it wasn't just, we weren't really talking about the Weinstein stuff at all. We just went with Danny, and people were fascinated. So I don't know. Do you think you will go down there?
I think it's likely.
It's in LA, is it?
Yeah.
It's just so far, because otherwise if it was like Florida, maybe I'd come as well and we could hang out and something. But
that'd be fun.
Yeah,
not Florida though. Not Florida. Yeah, it's far. That's far for you. What would it be like it's 6-hour flight just to the East Coast of the United States, right?
Yeah. So what is another 4, probably 10 or 11 hours?
Yeah.
I've been a few times to California, had a nice time, met some nice people. But to just go and then I'd sort of be hanging out outside the court, because can people just go in?
Oh yeah, open to the public. There's no reserved seating. There's some reserved seats for the prosecution side and the defense side, but otherwise it's open court. Anybody can go in.
I see. Thank you to Jen Nelson. Andrew, I saw your interview with Susie from Haiti. It was heartbreaking. Thank you so much for having her on and shedding light on this. Did you see that, Erin? Did you see that?
I did not. I didn't.
I actually can't talk about what it's about because I was about to, and it would just demonetize this video, because that one was demonetized. But it's something horrible. Let's see. This is a good one. Melody Marotta. Are Danny's lawyers Scientologists?
No. Danny's lawyers are not Scientologists. I'm not aware of any Scientologist criminal defense attorneys.
Okay. Must be some. I don't know.
I mean, the only criminal defense attorneys are the ones who defend. The only Scientologist criminal defense attorneys are the ones who actually defend Scientology itself sometimes. So Rick Moxon is a Scientologist and an attorney, and he represents Scientology in many affairs. So the main attorney representing any Scientologists who have potentially been witnesses in the Masterson stuff is a woman named Vicky Podboreski. But she's not a Scientologist. But she is. I did an estimate with Jeff Augustine the other day. She's billing Scientology as much as $60,000 a week.
Bloody hell.
For a
it's
case,
nothing for them.
For a case where Scientology's not even on trial. That's where your that's where your money is going to all you Scientologists forking over your hard-earned cash. $60,000 a week to Vicky Podboreski and her clan.
Oh, that is mad. Right. Question from Colonel Brock. Aaron, was Mike Rinder considered as a Church of Scientology export? What does that mean?
I think they meant expert.
Oh, well then, yes, I imagine.
So I don't know if he was considered. I'm not like in the loop on the whole prosecution side of things. And,
in court.
Yeah, in court, as opposed to Claire Headley. And this kind of matches up with another question I saw there, which is, aren't they going to claim that Claire Headley is biased? Well, yes, but that's the point of being certified as an expert witness. An expert witness, you might have a bias, but you're an expert on this subject and you're testifying about this subject. So she's not getting up there to be like, David Miscavige is mean. She's there to testify about the policies and procedures and technical bulletins of Scientology. And her testimony will be limited to that. It's possible that Mike was considered. I believe actually he may have been, but because he has also co-hosted a TV show and has a podcast with Leah Remini, I think it would be harder to get him introduced as an expert because of the bias issue. I mean, yeah. You know what I'm saying, right? Because he's such a high-profile public person in that regard. But that's just my opinion. I don't even know if that's true.
We've got a couple of people asking about Dodge Landersman. We've got Robin Tweet there, and we've got Lydia von Stretchclaw also. Will we get Dodge this time? Thank you for the super chats and all that. What do you think?
I don't think so, because Dodge took a job working for Valuetainment, a massive YouTube channel and company in Miami. So fantastic. Dodge is working for Patrick Bet-David's company, and he is essentially a traveling journalist for them. I just don't know that they give a damn about the Danny Masterson case. So I'm not, if I had to guess, I don't think Dodge is going to be covering the case.
I see. So no Dodge there. That's interesting though. He's Patrick Bet-David. That's big time.
That is big time. Yes. And it's a pay raise from the job that he got fired from. And now he's in Miami. I mean, beautiful, right?
Are you guys hanging out?
I mean, Miami's 4 hours away.
Oh, see, everything in my head is like America over there.
Yeah, it's a 4-hour drive. I've only driven through Miami. I've never even spent or any time or visited any places in Miami.
That's funny because I have a couple of times, but
is that
it's
right?
funny because I've been saying to Erin that I've got my wife's family. They've got some family in Miami, so we'll go stay and then we can all hang out. But obviously, it's still 4 hours away, so it is like Edinburgh too, the mysterious place that I live in, 4 hours away from their drive. Well, maybe more than 4 hours, to be honest. Let's see what other questions we've got. Well, this is more of a statement from Positive Exploration saying, hi, on Ashton Kutcher, I think it's especially a weird thing for someone who speaks out on other of those kinds of things and these horrible things. Why not defend horrible things if he was going to say anything? Yeah, why not defend the victims? Good point. I'll get that off the screen.
I want to say something here.
Go on.
Ashton Kutcher has a sister. His sister has a child. The types of photographs that Ashton's sister posts of her child and that Ashton Kutcher comments on about what great photos they are, those photos would probably get most people put into jail. Yes.
Shut
so
up.
If you want to talk about weird behavior from Ashton Kutcher, I'm not going to name names or anything because I'm not trying to direct people to look at these photos. But Ashton Kutcher has a sister. His sister has an Instagram account where she posts the most incredibly inappropriate photos of her own offspring. So, and Ashton Kutcher supposedly has an app specifically designed to detect and prevent this type of content on the internet.
No way.
And he's commenting on his own sister's photos that, like, I don't even want to describe them. They're disgusting.
Oh my God.
So,
I never get people with how they do that with their kids and stuff. People like to put their kids, that's, fine. But when it's like that, I think it shows.
And guys, I'm not talking about nursing photos or something. Just for the record, I'm not being like, anyway, I'm just commenting. There's some weird stuff with Ashton Kutcher.
That's weird. That is weird. And at the very least, it shows a total ignorance about what kind of people are viewing the photos, and that's being kind, I think, in sort of judging that behavior. We've got a bit of a cheeky one from Colonel Brock. Do you want to see it?
Sure.
Colonel Brock asks, AA1, will you be watching Tony Ortega's reporting?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, there you go. That's all you have to say. Nothing more.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't I?
There you go. Will you be watching it? Why wouldn't you? I agree. I agree with you. Love Sherlock says, are you hearing this, OSA? Do you think OSA, the Office of Special Affairs, will be, or from Scientology, be watching this right now?
Oh, 100. OSA watches every minute of every video anyone does on Scientology, including you. And absolutely. They also, just so you know, have the ability to know whenever people they're interested in book plane travel everywhere. Did you know that?
No. So they'll know if I've booked a flight somewhere.
Yes, they can set up an alert in their little computer system to let them know of any flights that you book. So they have, because there's some legal entity that they own and control by virtue of owning a cruise ship. So because they own a cruise ship, they have the databases and the software designed for, itinerary. And they basically have an in-house travel agency. And so they can, if the travel agencies, you can see when people book tickets. That's why I don't always try to be all coy and discreet when I'm going somewhere, because it's like Scientology already knows where I'm going. They at least know what city I'm flying into. So I may not tell them if I'm driving to another city after I land. I may not tell them, I'm not going to say what hotel I'm staying at, but they already know what cities I'm traveling to and when I'm traveling. And if you're on their radar, then they know the same for you.
Oh, all my journeys from Edinburgh, my lovely home, they know all about that. What is a seamount? Something Sea Org related? True Tech asks.
I've never heard the word. I've never heard the word before.
Okay, there we go. We don't know. And then there we go. Elizabeth Roberts wants to know if the trial verdict could inspire more of these kinds of trials against Scientology members.
No, I don't think that's a factor here. Remember, it's not a matter of just like inspire more trials. It's the prosecutors of the world who decide whether to bring charges against Scientology. It's not the victims. So now you might want to go, okay, if Danny were found guilty, could that encourage more victims to come forward? Yes, I think that's safe to say. I think if I were in a victim's shoes and I thought there was no real, very low likelihood of getting justice, I'd be like, why bother? So maybe in that sense it would. But I would say people have been coming forward for a long time. And in many cases, prosecutors decide not to move forward. So, so could a victory like this inspire more prosecutors to be a little more adventurous in bringing cases? Perhaps.
It's an interesting thought, and I'm sure that, like any secretive organization, there's more to come out from things that other members have been doing. I got a question from Lady Veritas that I'm just sorry, Lady Veritas, and thank you for the super chat. I don't even know who's there all for, but I don't want to put up just because I'm trying not to put the R word up too often on this video, in case YouTube takes it down. But is the R word a criminal act? If so, why is it normally dealt with internally? Ron Hubbard said, always follow the laws of the land.
I mean, L. Ron Hubbard saying always follow the laws of the land was just something he said. So wait, the question was what? Is what?
Whether what Danny Masterson did, whether it's a criminal offense.
Well, is it a criminal offense in Scientology? Of course it is.
I think in real life, but and then with that, but L. Ron Hubbard said to follow the laws of the land. But I guess what you're saying is he said a lot of things.
He said a lot of things, and also violating what he said doesn't necessarily get you kicked out of Scientology. It just means you get in trouble. Now, Danny Masterson did get in trouble for what he did to Jane Doe 1 in Scientology. He did get in trouble. he got in a lot of trouble. He even had to. There was even a confidential at the time settlement between Danny Masterson and Jane Doe 1 that Scientology put in place to try and make it more likely that Jane Doe 1 would keep her mouth shut in the many years to come. So yes, it's a crime. Yes, L. Ron Hubbard said you shouldn't do things like that. But that doesn't mean Scientology is going to turn you over to the authorities or cooperate in any way with the authorities.
Oh, there you go. Claire Kennedy wants to know how she can contact me. Just go on Twitter or Instagram or something. You can find me there, and probably the same for Erin, I guess. Timothy Sherry Ayla, did Danny Masterson, not David Miscavige, get any treatments from Scientology for his actions? Is that why they wouldn't have wanted him to be treated by the justice system?
Well, those two things are not mutually exclusive. So yes to the first part, and no, that's not the reason for the second part. So yes, he did get treatments or so-called handlings in Scientology specifically for what he did to Jane Doe 1, but they don't want anything dragged into the justice system. They don't want any matters between Scientologists dragged into the justice system. Now, if you're a Scientologist and a non-Scientologist does something to you, you're allowed to bring that into the justice system. Scientologists are not inherently against participating in the justice system, just not on any matters concerning Scientologists where both parties are Scientologists.
Interesting. I think that is all the questions we've got for now.
Okay.
Apart from Love Sherlock saying, did you all hit the like button on both of the videos on both of our channels? Are you ready to wrap up, Erin? Is there anything more you wanted to say?
No, I think this was a good chat. This was a good summary. And yeah, I mean, hell, we've already been going for almost an hour now.
I can put it out as one of my audio podcast episodes now.
Nice.
Pretty cool. So thank you everybody for joining us. Like I say,
yeah, well, let me do tell, I mean, since I'm to the 1,200 people who are watching on my channel, definitely subscribe to Andrew Gold. In the video description on the first line, I'll put a little link to his channel. Andrew's got some of the best interview content on YouTube. He's a rock star. And every now and then he does his little Tom Cruise lookalike contest. He puts on his black turtleneck and he talks about Scientology.
I lost the turtleneck.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Well, it had a hole in it, and my girlfriend said, "Oh, go and take it back." And I was like, "It's only a small hole, you know, what if?" And she was like, "You've got to take it back and change it." So I went and did that. And when I did that, I gave it back. I said, "Right, do you have any like another one?" And they said, "No, we don't do those anymore. It was done. It was Marks and Spencer." And I was like, "Oh," and I thought that's a Scientology hand there. They purposely put a hole in my jumper so that I would go and change it and not be able to get it again to look like. I think like the whole world no longer has the Tom Cruise sweater. Like they're now out because he realized I was mocking him a bit. But thank you, Erin. And I always love it when people come over and they say they've come from AA Ron. I love that. So please do. I do a lot on Scientology, as you know, but also other cults and extreme religions. Lots on Hasidic Judaism recently, which I've been really enjoying. And look, for the 600 or so watching live on mine at the moment, you probably already follow AA Ron, but if you don't, you're missing a treat. It's growing up in Scientology. It's the best source on Scientology. You can get right into all the details on there as well. So go and follow his amazing channel. I think we're all good, aren't we?
Thank you. I think we're all good.
Cool. Well, cheers, guys. Have a good evening, everyone.